Hi, Louisa.
Hi, hello, how you doing?
I'm good. Thank you. How's your day going?
Going great. Honestly, I need to start by saying this is such a huge honor. I'm so happy I get to do this for a job.
Thanks. Thank you. Yes, I know. I'm delighted. Thank you very much. I'm happy to talk to you. Thanks for
So
chatting.
I would like to start by asking you, what's the expectation for playing in Brazil for the first time in what, 3 weeks now, right?
Yeah, 3 weeks. I think I'm excited to play the music in somewhere that I've never played before. I've never played to an audience in Brazil, and so I haven't experienced. I haven't yeah, got a chance to kind of share that with fans or supporters. So I'm excited, and also, Brazilian crowds, Brazilian audiences are kind of famous the world over. So I'm excited to
Right,
um.
yeah. I have been meaning to ask you actually. I watched a lot of videos from your live performances, and the comment section in performances from other countries are always talking about how respectful your audiences are, and in that not singing over your voice or anything like that. I know in Latin America that is different, right? I know you've played Mexico recently. I'm not asking you to compare both, obviously, but I was wondering, as a performer, how is it different to see like the crowd reception? Does that change your experience when you're on stage?
I think I think honestly, being on stage, the difference of whether I feel like I've had a good show or what I feel is a bad show for me, it depends on, like, everything about the performance is sometimes can have a lot to do with how much fun or how the audience are experiencing. And I think it's a kind of, there's like, I don't know if I could say it's 50-50, but the audience is everything to the performance. And a show is, I believe, only as good as the audience experiences it. I could make a bunch of mistakes on guitar, or I could forget the lyrics, but if the experience of that show, and I could beat myself up for it, but if the experience of the show, the audience is having a great time, um it the experience of that show was good. You know what I mean? And that's part of live music. And the audiences are different wherever you go in the world. There's things of place and culture that find their way. You can feel it when you're on stage, and in the way that people celebrate, in the way that people congregate, the way that people express themselves. But my experiences with Latin America so far have been incredible. So we just did two shows in Mexico, and it was a total joy. And to hear, I said this when I was in Mexico, is that I would hear songs sang to me in English that in primarily English speaking territories, people don't sing as loudly and don't sing as clearly. So that was always a huge surprise to me, and a very, yeah, very joyful experience. So I'm super excited for uh playing, in more spots in South America, and in particular Brazil, because I get a lot of, I think from what I understand, there's a lot of fans in Brazil that, you know, are hopefully looking forward to seeing.
We are, we definitely are. Are you familiar at all with Brazilian culture? Do you have any Brazilians in your life? Do you know of
A
anything
little bit.
about?
Yeah, a little bit. Uh, I've been to Brazil uh once, spent a little bit of time in Rio, and I got to go to a kind of a samba night somewhere in the city, which was just one of my favorite live music experiences. To experience a crowd kind of becoming the nearly like the, the crowd becoming like the lead vocalist, or becoming like the counterpart, or the backing vocalist, like singing in harmony the response lines to an entire evening's worth of songs, and so some of that sort of traditional, I don't know what you refer to it as, kind of a folk music, like some of that older samba, uh uh it's like, the stories in it was something I found fascinating, and I was always drawn uh, to bossa nova as well too. It's kind of complexity, and it's it's just so these like artful expressions, these perfect crystalline, very harmonically complex uh, pieces of music. So I was always fascinated by that as well too. So I've some awareness of Brazilian music and rhythm and its influence. It's staggering, you know.
So cool to hear that, because sometimes I do um uh notice some similarities between especially the themes in your work and themes in Brazilian music, even Brazilian literature as well.
Mm.
Um, Unreal on Earth made me think a lot about one of our greatest works of literature, which is The Posthumous Memories of Brás Cubas, which is about a narrator who is dead and is writing his own autobiography. And
Interesting.
it was amazing how I could feel that familiarity in
Mm.
in in both works, especially because with so many literary references, right? I feel like that's kind of the power of the universality, if that makes sense.
Mm.
Um,
Mhm.
when you write a song or an album which with so many literary references, you worry about whether or not audiences are going to get that or look up the references. You feel like that's important for understanding the work. That makes sense.
I don't worry about it so much. I think those who will understand it and want to explore it will, and hopefully their experience of it might deepen, or it might, you know, but for me it's like sometimes those little things are like little Easter eggs. They might be for me. They might be like little fun things I want to put in for me. Sometimes they're fundamental to the work. And I mean, if I'm asked questions on them, I'll just be like, yeah, I mean, this is what I was nodding to, or it's, um, leaving something for, leaving a little breadcrumb trail. But for me,
Right.
it's like, no, it doesn't, it's not necessary. I also really want the songs to just be something that on the surface people can enjoy, and that's also really, really important to the listening experience, is that I'm not throwing somebody in a deep end such that if you don't understand this concept, you can't understand this piece of music. I think I also I just love a beautiful song, and I just hope that the work is can be enjoyed in that way. Something I just want to go back to something that you had said about like literary influences. I think something I found really interesting about Brazil, and something I would have to explore a lot further. But what I understood about its cinema and its songcraft and its a lot of its literature is maybe there's similarities in Ireland. This is like a post-colonial thing of trying to there's where the consciousness of a country is trying to figure itself out a little bit. It's like, okay, well, where do we go from here, and who are we, and what we're about, knowing and understanding all of these beginnings and all of these influences. you know how do we hold this in the light and say, okay, well, what, you know um that we'll say on one hand, here we are, and what does that mean, and who are we, so I don't know if that's, but definitely that's a lot of Irish literature is that's always fascinated me. Like that's a lot of James Joyce and
Right. Yeah, absolutely. The scars that leaves, it bleeds into the work to this day, right? Even uh,
for sure.
uh in both work. Um, in your work, I see a lot of a mix of um love songs, songs about love, and political songs, right? Social commentary, all of that. I was wondering if you see, do you feel like you're doing two kinds of songs, or do they both mix together? Is it just what moves you to write those songs? Is it similar feelings at all?
um I think for me, what can be fun to play with and experiment with and explore is like where the two can exist side by side, can coexist, you know, that the personal and the relationship that you have with the people around you, your loved ones or your family or your friends or your community, that is the political, you know what I mean? Or the political circumstances of that you're living in, they pervade that relationship. You know what I mean? They're you are within it. So like the love story or the love song doesn't exist in a vacuum, you know. It exists in a living, breathing society. And so I'm trying to think of examples, but in a song like To Be Alone from the first record, where on one hand there's all of this love and this intimacy, but it's you cannot separate it from the elements of the world around us that seem to invade in upon us, or and violate us or violate our values, and you know. So to me, they can exist hand in hand, the political and the personal, you know, in the same space. They kind of cohabit.
Absolutely. And your first song, the first song you released was "Take Me to Church," right? And it was also a first hit. And if I'm not mistaken, you wrote it right out of college or in college or something like that. Um,
Yeah.
does the feeling again, the feeling that moves you to write those kinds of songs, has it changed over the years? In the sense of what your voice will do to these matters, something like that, or is it the same still?
Do you mean with regards to the themes of the love,
Yeah,
or the?
because I feel like over the years sometimes we can it changes what we can contribute to those kinds of conversations, right?
Yeah,
Or has it
yeah,
changed to you at all?
yeah. I think there was a time when I would say, "Oh yeah, I would have loved, you know, like everything about institutionalized religion, etc." That it's like, oh, I've said all I have to say about that. And I think as our world is still in many ways, and the space, you know, the society that we live in, um, as long as that's still an influence, still finds its way into legislation, still finds its way into the day-to-day experience, and like whether it's legislation, whether it's certain taboos, whether it's certain whatever, as long as that's still rooted in institutionalized religious organizations, you know, or these kind of like uh, these kind of exclusive brotherhoods of you know, of sort of, I don't know, theocratic thinking, you know, like the Roman Catholic Church. As long as that influence is still being exerted, the influence is still going to find its way through me, and so I'm still probably going to find things to draw from and talk about in that. I think that was maybe the case in a song like Swan Upon Leda. There was a lot of things that you know. So in some ways it's changed. Like there's themes where I'm like, you know what, I've explored this, and I want to move on to something that maybe is lighter, or something that just is fun to explore, or something that brings me joy, or is excites me in a different way, or I find um worth investigating as in the song. Um and sometimes I'll come back and it's this the theme is still it's like the mind is not closed, you know. It's like there's still stuff to explore and extract.
Awesome. Thank you so much. We've run out of time, but again, it's been an honor.
Hey,
I hope you have fun in your shows here. I hope we live up to the expectation.
thank you, Louisa. Thank you. Really appreciate the time. It's good to chat to you.
Whoa.